And you talk about PCAPs and other things like that. There are people that have been advising Mike and even the president and other people with stuff that I think is baloney. I mean, I'm trying to be as
I can
nice.
show you, Joe, you and I both agree that Mike Lindell is a patriot.
He's a great man. Yes.
Right. I have had an ongoing conversation with Mike for about 4 years. I've mostly text messages, some phone calls, and then finally we did get to hang out a little bit. But I've always had a dialogue with him, and I've always tried to be honest with him about what we were finding. And we were telling him what we were finding, and he chose to not accept our information. But we feel, you and I have had this conversation. I don't want to go too much further into it other than to say that I believe that Mike was being sold a bill of goods. And Mike wanted to believe it, but it was not believable in our minds. But that doesn't mean that I don't think Mike's not a great American.
Yeah, so this is where, and I advise Mike a lot, right? People get mad at me, especially grifters. I mean, you have to admit, the last 4 years has brought out so many people that literally has this. It's like the snake oil salesmen of the century, right? And I got trapped in this because I was on that call with Coomer, but I never lied. Like I didn't lie about anything, and neither was the last 4 years of giving up selling my company for $250 million. So I do know that there are people out there that are telling purposeful lies. I didn't participate in it. I know that they came to my house with guns, and I had to protect my family. You don't try to cut the tongue out of the guy that's lying. You cut the tongue out of the guy that's telling the truth. And so, we have to look at the lawfare and the fact that nobody's even curious. They're not even curious. Like, nobody's even curious about looking at the system architecture and saying, okay, let's solve the problem. And they had, Democrats and Republicans both had the opportunity to do that over the last 4 years. And both sides did not have an appetite for solving the problem. They didn't.
Yeah, a lot of times it's easier to complain about a problem than solve it.
We service the symptoms.
One important thing, and Joe, that I really appreciate about you and Mike is that we've here at Lead Stories and my staff and you guys, we've had a dialogue going back and forth. Sometimes it gets a little weird. I'm a trader. I've hurt America more than anything. But
I've never said that at all, ever.
Oh, Mike has, but I laugh at it because I know he's a good guy.
Well, and I don't think he believes.
I got a thin skin. I got a thick skin.
I think that he's come around to the same realizations that maybe, and I'm not going to speak for Mike, but I'm not ever going to speak for Mike, but I think he's come to some realizations that there are opportunities for people to walk him off a cliff. And that happens in business all the time. It happens to you where, if you got to fall on the sword because somebody fed you a bunch of baloney, you got to admit this. It's not a comfortable feeling, but you got to do it.
Right.
And I think he has in some parts.
Yeah. Well, I just know I can talk to Mike and he'll listen to me and he might say, that's BS. And Alan, why didn't you never? But, we're pretty confident in what we find because of our process. But we remain fellow Americans.
Well, here's what I'm going to do, and I know I've taken up way more time than you had to give me today.
I've enjoyed talking to you, Joe. Yeah. You're truly a pleasure to talk to.
But I want to say this: I look forward to tomorrow. The sun's going to come up in the east; it's going to set in the west. And one of the things that I miss about my life prior to 2020 was the ability to just have that dialogue in places that are uncomfortable, hanging out with gang members, helping men that have been incarcerated for 20 years just reassimilate to life and not feel like they have a scarlet letter. I want to get back to helping people realize that it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic condition is. We are all Americans, and we all deserve an opportunity to be successful, and it's never too late to be successful. So I'll keep reading your deals, and I'm absolutely going to convince you that the machines are bad. I promise you, I will sit down and walk through the entire. I have a big board, and it's like I could tie it all together. And I don't want the conspiracy theory tie the people together, Because I think there's just bad people. But I will show you how the architecture could be better to be transparent. That would make it impossible for them to cheat. That I think I could do.
All right. Well, thanks. I'm going to go back to doing some fact checking. I hear there's an election today.
Hey, thanks. God bless you.
And give my regards. Give my regards to Mike.
I will do that. And I'm glad you let this conversation breathe, as you say, because I think it's great for people to hear it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you. Alan Duke. He's actually one of my favorite people. I don't always agree with him. And you would say, Joe, he's bad. I just got a text message from someone that says, why would you have Alan Duke on? And I was like, why wouldn't I?